Hey, welcome to Calm Nation.
You need a doctor?
I am a doctor.
I should have died years ago.
People all over the world have my disease.
I'm here to find a cure. We have to push the boundaries, take the risks.
If you're gonna run,
Do it now.
Dr. Michael Morbius, you've been missing for 2 months.
When you're a stranger,
Then you were found on a container ship that washed up off of Long Island.
faces look ugly. When you're alone,
What did you do to yourself, Doctor?
I wish I knew. I went from dying to being more alive than ever. It worked.
not exactly. I have increased strength and speed and some form of bat radar.
What else can I do?
There are limits. There has to be.
There's something inside of me.
It wants to hunt
And consume blood.
Michael. When you're a stranger, faces look
Can you control it?
I don't know.
Half the city wants to kill you.
We haven't had anything this good since that thing in San Francisco.
The other half wants to control you.
Hey, Dr. Mike, you and I should stay in touch.
I'd do anything to save a life. I don't know what I'm capable of.
You save lives, you don't take them. Are you here to heal the world? Or to destroy it? Who the hell are you, man?
I'm just kidding. It's Dr. Michael Morbius at your service.
Yeah, tonight we're talking about Morbius. And hopefully you're ready to have some fun. Traditionally, I have my lovely and talented co-host who has, and hopefully next week he'll be back from the dead. But this week he's a little bit, interred. So tonight we're going to be talking about Morbius, the living vampire. Not to be confused with the other vampires, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Morbius is a Marvel character, and if you know Marvel, you're probably best and most familiar with the capes, the supes, the superheroes, those guys, But there's way more to Marvel. And as we get closer and closer to Halloween, we here at Calm Nation, we've been taking a minute to talk about the horror comics. Moon Knight, Werewolf by Night, Ghost Rider, Blade. These are all some of Marvel's horror titles. And on the DC side, we've been talking about Swamp Thing and, hey, let's face it, Sandman, just a little bit. So there's really just a wealth of horror comics out there. Don't be afraid to pick up some of these stories. Some of them you can really sink your teeth into. Bad jokes. Speaking about bad jokes and such, please feel free to go to calmnation.com and join our mailing list, join our fan club. Okay, I'll stop now. And hey, Give us a like, give us a follow. We're on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all of it. Instagram. Let us know. Maybe this wasn't your cup of tea this week, but next week we'll get your type. If you're playing live, please go to crowd.live/AEQWT. If you're not playing live and just watching our video later on, we are here every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Give us a try. It's a little bit more fun when you're competing. And hey, if you want to know the ins and outs of the questions, of the rules around them, go check them out at our website. But in the meantime, I have faith that you will figure it out. All right, so let's get started. Okay, vampire. The word vampire. When was the earliest use of the word vampire? Now, here's a hint. Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press in the 1400s. And yeah, by the late 1600s, there was printed material out there that was referencing vampires, and printed material that was referencing vampires as if this was something that everybody knew about. This was not fiction. This was not a story. This was like something along the lines of, hey, did you know, that town over there, they had some vampires. This was something that people truly believed to be real. And the first time it became commonly used in the English language, 1688. Crazy. But fiction. Let's talk about the fiction. The first vampire fiction was written by John William Polidori. Probably completely mispronounced his name. Please forgive me. He was a British writer and a physician. He is known for, basically the story, The Vampire, which is a short work of fiction. It was written in 1819. And there was a competition, a contest that he competed in along with Lord Byron and Mary Shelley. This is the same competition that Mary Shelley wrote Modern Prometheus for, which you're going to know as Frankenstein. What the heck? These people were all like friends and whatnot. What the heck were they talking about? But The Vampire, which is the first vampire fiction, it's considered that, the start of all the romantic vampire fantasy fiction. And just for fun, John William Polidori, he had all these connections to the Rossettis, to the Masons, to conspiracy theories, to revolutions. It makes me wonder if maybe the vampire thing is true. Probably not, right? Get it. So that was the first vampire story, but not the most famous. We all know the most famous. It's Dracula. Not Morbius, Dracula. Who created? And Dracula was created by Abraham Stoker, better known by his nickname Bram to his friends. Now, again, just to put this in context, first use of the word vampire, 1688. This novel, the Dracula novel, the one you know, first published in 1897. This was a minute ago. And yet the thought, the imagery is still powerful and strong and going on today. I mean, you know who Dracula is. Everybody knows who Dracula is. There is supposed to be, by the way, according to legend, there was in Romania, which is where Transylvania is based. Transylvania is a section of Romania. There were folklores, there was legends, there were stories about vampires, and apparently, Bram Stoker just kind of took them, massaged them, made a story, and what? 200, 150 years later, we're still telling the tale, and you know who it is. But the thing of it was, since we're basically doing a little bit of the history of vampires and definitely a little bit of history of vampires in media, Dracula was not the first vampire movie. The first vampire movie was Nosferatu. It was German. It was a silent film. It was weird. And yeah, it was basically completely a ripoff of Dracula, except as opposed to Count Dracula, they had Count Orlok. And, as opposed to, this fella, they had another. But it was very, very clearly Count Dracula. Because you have to realize this is at a time when, there wasn't a lot of vampire fiction. It wasn't like there wasn't tons of it. There was one, maybe two stories, a handful. So the fact that the movie was so closely aligned to Dracula, it wasn't even an argument. And so Bram Stoker's family, his heirs, sued the folks who put together Nosferatu. I think they managed to destroy a lot of the prints. It's available somewhat, but it's not commonly and easily available. And yet, because it was the first vampire movie, because it was kind of quirky and weird, etc., it is considered a masterpiece of cinema. And it is interesting because, again, this was done in 1922. There's no sound technology, nothing. It's all the imagery. It's all black and white, and it's still scary. So then came the first Dracula movie. And who starred in the first Dracula movie? Come on. You know this. The first Dracula movie was Bela Lugosi. Now, a couple of things. The first Dracula movie was 1931. By 1931, sound was more common in movies. So the 1931 Dracula movie, it had sound to it. The 1931 Dracula movie was based on the Dracula stage play. And Bela Lugosi had been the star of and the instigator of the role on the stage play. One of the things that Bela did, that cape. Bela Lugosi was buried in that cape. And that cape, Bela Lugosi was a trained stage actor. He knew how to work it. He knew how to move it. This is 1931. They just invented sound in movies. There's no special effects. The only special effect was that cape. And he knew how to work it. If every Dracula movie since then, that cape was a big, huge part of it. And beyond that, if you're familiar with The Shadow and other superheroes and such, mystery men who were out there, they also were using the cape because they realized it was a really powerful, dramatic instrument that, they could strike fear with good accessories. as you do. It's also interesting to note that 1931, this is pre-code, pre-movie code. I'll go into why that's important in a minute. Now, Morbius. Morbius first published in Marvel Comics when? (1971). So, I was mentioning that Dracula was a pre-Hays Code, pre-movie code movie. Now, somewhere in the early to mid 30s, the folks who made movies, they got censored. They had what was called the Hays Office, the Hays Code, and anything pre-code, like the Dracula movie, was a little bit racy. Realize, we're talking your great-grandparents here were the target audience, and this was a movie that was considered really violent, really scary, more so than it would have been, and they got away with it more so than they would have a decade previous once the code was in effect. The pre-code movies that came out in the 20s and 30s, early sounds, they had sexual innuendo, they had nudity, they had romantic relationships between non-traditional couples, if you know what I mean. They had drug use. They were smoking marijuana. It was crazy. And if you've ever seen an uncut version of Public Enemy, Little Caesar, Scarface, the original Scarface, or female Babyface, or my personal favorite, Redheaded Woman, if you've ever seen the uncut versions, you know what I'm talking about. This was done, again, your great-grandparents. It was crazy. But then came for the movies, the Hays Code. And it's been argued that as the movies became more tame with their content, with their imagery, the comics became a little bit more graphic. But by the 1950s, as we've gone into with some other shows, there was the comics code, which is why you don't see werewolves, you don't see zombies, you don't see vampires until 1971 when the code was lifted. And hey, as we mentioned in another show, it's kind of why Catwoman took a little bit of a hiatus because, yeah, she was frowned on by the comics code. But in 1971, that started to change. Now, Morbius was initially a villain, not always a villain. Whose villain was he? Spider-Man. He debuted in, I believe, Amazing Spider-Man 101. And that's like August or October, somewhere between August and October of 1971. And like I said, he was, the comics code said, okay, you can talk about vampires. And then he showed up. Of course, he wasn't like all the vampires, but he was banned along with all of them. And when we first meet Morbius, Spider-Man has a little bit of a problem. He's got 6 arms total, 2 that he came with and 4 extra. And while some folks might say that came in handy, yeah, no. Public service announcement, y'all. Take the medicine your pharmacist or your doctor gives you as instructed. Read the bottle. Do not deviate. Do not sit there and say, gee, yeah, no. You just don't know what'll happen. So yeah, when Morbius meets Spider-Man, Spider-Man has 6 arms. By the way, this is referred to as the Six-Arm Saga. Not the catchiest of titles, but if you reference it, people know what you're talking about. People know the story arc. Now, at the time, Spider-Man is dating. And Spider-Man has had a very tough life, gotta say. Which is sort of part of him being Spider-Man. He had a close friend during the entire run of Spider-Man. He has had a close friend become a junkie. He has had 6 arms. Uncle Ben, you know the story of Uncle Ben. Aunt May's health was really bad. Aunt May's taste in boyfriends, not optimal. Aunt May died. She got better. Aunt Anna, Anyway, clones. Awkward family dinner. But at the time we meet Spider-Man in this book, and at the time Morbius met Spider-Man, he was dating Gwen Stacy. So I'm sure that'll all work out wonderfully well. So, Spider-Man has 6 arms, which does not come in handy. And he wants to get rid of the 6 arms. So he sees the help of Curt Connors. Now, Curt Connors first appeared in 1963, I believe. Tell me if I'm wrong, y'all. But he was created by Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and he is a doctor and a geneticist. He's researching the ability of reptiles to grow missing limbs. So obviously, he's the fella you call on when you wake up with a couple extra. It's good to have friends who can lend a hand. Now, Curt Connors, he's got an alias. Yeah. See, the reason that Curt Connor was researching reptiles and growing up extra arms is that he was missing his right arms. And he developed this lizard-based serum that would allow humans to do the same, but it kind of turned you into a lizard. You know, side effects. Read the label, y'all. Read the label. So, by the way, if you're thinking, hey, wait, he was in the Spider-Man movies. Yes, Lizard was portrayed by Dylan Baker in Spider-Man 2, Reese Ifans in Amazing Spider-Man, and also who reprised the role for Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, Morbius is also a doctor. Specifically, what? So, Morbius, if you know Morbius, he is referred to as the living vampire. Why is that? He is not like the other vampires. His heart beats. Most vampires, that doesn't happen. And like I said before, a wooden stake, that'll probably just make him cranky. It's not going to kill him. See, when Morbius was fully human, he was suffering from a blood disease. And because he was brilliant, he went and he studied hematology and biochemistry because he wanted to find a cure. He was working as a biochemist and found maybe a cure. Don't want to give away spoilers, but suffice to say, Morbius' solution kind of gives the rest of us a pain in the neck. Now, Morbius is so smart. He won a Nobel Prize. In the comics, he wins a Nobel Prize. He takes the money that he gets from winning the Nobel Prize and he goes and he invests it in further research. In the movie, he invents artificial blood, but turns down the Nobel Prize because it's not a good enough solution to his blood disease. Now, y'all, artificial blood is not something that has been invented yet. And if you could get on that and invent that, I would appreciate it. So, but yeah, like I said, in the movie, he turns down the Nobel Prize. In the comics, he accepts the Nobel Prize with the prize money to go conduct further research. Do we think that research went well? Now, Morbius, in the comics, has a friend. In the comics, Emil Nikos, he's a friend, he's his fellow researcher, and kind of his first victim. What happens is, well, read the book. But in the movie, the role of the friend and assistant seemed to be filled by the character of Lucian Crown, also known as Milo in the movie. Again, in the movie, Milo is the best friend and somewhat surrogate brother of Michael Morbius, and both of them had the same blood disease. And in the movie, Matt Smith, who I always think of as Doctor in Doctor Who, played Milo in the Morbius movie. And in the movie, Morbius has a fiance named Martine. Now, in the comics, Martine Bancroft, she was the love interest. And after Morbius had kind of accidentally killed his assistant, sorry about that, Emil, he tried very hard not to hurt Martine. In the movie, Martine is a doctor. And again, the love interest. And again, he's trying not to hurt her. She was played by Adria Arjona, and a couple things happened to her in the movie that never really happened in the comic, but it were kind of cool. So you might want to check out the movie or the comic or both. And hey, this week we were talking about Morbius, the living vampire. Cursed with an experiment gone wrong, Dr. Michael Morbius is possessed with an unquenchable thirst for blood, yet his heart beats like any other man's. He is a living vampire. From his first appearance and solo color comic through his black and white adventures, because in the 70s, the racy stuff was in black and white, this epic collection begins Morbius's tragic adventure into fear. Morbius was created by Roy Thomas and Gil Kane, and Roy Thomas is a legendary writer and editor. In addition to Morbius, he co-created Wolverine, Vision, Doc Samson, Carol Danvers, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Ultron, Yellowfinger, Yellow Jacket, Defenders, Man-Thing, Red Sonja, etc. I'm gonna stop. I mean, basically, he wrote the X-Men, he wrote the Adventures, he wrote DC Comics All-Star Squadron. He had a really good career. And Gil Kane did the artwork. And Gil Kane created some of the modern day versions of Green Lantern. Adam, he worked with Iron Fist, Adam Warlock, and, legendary illustrator. Because this is a collection, we have other writers in it. Steve Gerber, who wrote Guardians of the Galaxy, Daredevil, Fool Killer. We have art from Ross Andrew, who's done Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, Flash, Metal Man. Just a lot of nice stuff. You should check it out. And hey, before we leave you, I want to take a moment to say yes. We're going to be at the Baltimore Comic-Con on Saturday. We are going to have a live show with Ron Mars. And on Sunday, we're going to have a live show with Jamal Igle. Come and check us out. Go to baltimore.com. Read all about it. If you're in the Baltimore area, you should stop by. And yes, I know there's not a yellow finger. I'm sorry, I screwed up. Next week, when we're coming to you live, we'll be coming to you live on Day of the Dead, and we'll be talking about Neil Adams' Dead Man, because yes, that's what you do on Day of the Dead. And the winner tonight, Mary Smith, you go. Again, thanks for spending your time with us. We're here every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Please sign up. Go to our website, sign up for the mailing list. Follow us on every social media you can think of. Let us know if we get something wrong, if there's a topic you want us to cover. Any of it. All of it. We hope you had fun, and we hope to see you in Baltimore. Thank you. Have a great night. And don't be scared to take a chance on something new. Okay?